Tell him about the time we faced them.
All right. Well, as I remember.
At Avenger headquarters.
Because united, the Avengers are strong.
Welcome to the Marvel D&T Evolution podcast with myself, Andy Stead.
And I'm Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
And we are once again welcoming back Luke Smith from Hydra Collectables. How you doing, Luke?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me back.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I mean, we've got you back for a very special reason, which we'll chat about in a little while. But we're going to catch up with you in a moment and see what you've been doing. We know you've made some slight changes to your channel and the way that you're approaching things. So that'd be really interesting to hear what you've been doing. So that'd be great. How are you doing, lads? We had a good week. Jarian, you had a good week?
Yeah, good week. Quick week, but hopefully this week goes by quicker because Friday.
well, Wednesday.
Yeah.
Alex, how are you?
Good. I got the Infinity Saga, the 6-pack of the, you know what I'm talking about, the Funkos?
Yeah, the
where they're each
ones.
representing the Infinity Stones. So that's pretty exciting. I can
see the smile on your face. You're really happy.
Yeah. Oh, it looks so awesome. Like, I didn't realize that they actually put like individual little stones on the stand, like in front of each one of the characters. So like, it's kind of cool how they kind of, even because they're so small, so like it's kind of like a nice little detail that they added.
Nice. Have you got it all in the 6-pack as well?
Yeah, so I got the 6-pack, and unfortunately I will not be taking that one out of the box. I cannot bring myself to. So
I see. So we've been looking at the Funko group that we're in on Facebook, and there's the guy that does the hard stacks. Have you seen those with like the prints on the front of them? They look amazing. So they've got
they're crazy. They're it's so crazy how they do the like semi-transparency where it's like it creates the image that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, very, very good. But I've not bought any new Funkos this last week just because it's Christmas and birthday and you don't know what you're going to get, do you? So you sort of don't want to buy anything new just yet. Right. So just a bit of a recap on our last episode. We broke down Hawkeye quite a bit, actually. I'll tell you what, actually, Luke, we're up to date with Hawkeye. We've seen it all. Have you been watching it?
Yeah, I'm fully up to date also. I mean, it's a Marvel show. How can I not be up to date?
That is it, exactly. How you been finding it?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this. I mean, out of all the different Disney Plus shows, I still think that WandaVision was the greatest surprise. Like, that's the one that I kind of enjoyed the most. Obviously, it took a little while to get into, but once it got started, it really did get rolling. But Hawkeye seems to be my close second. Like, I've really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, WandaVision was very unique, wasn't it? And each week was unique, but the whole show was quite new and different, wasn't it? And I think the subject was very hard hitting. Having said that, all the subjects has been very hard hitting, haven't they? You know, you look at Winter Soldier, Falcon and Winter Soldier, you look at Loki, you look at this. They've all been they've all had a very strong. Message at their core, haven't they? I really like the Hawkeye series at the moment because I think his message that he's got is he doesn't think that he's a hero. He's not looking at himself like that, and everybody kind of is. Although he's, they've got this. What's the branding problem that Kate keeps telling that he's got? But he's a reluctant hero, isn't he? And I've been really enjoying watching him go through that process and he just wants to go back home and just have Christmas with his family. And, he doesn't want this superhero stuff anymore. He's kind of done. It's the Bruce Willis, Mel Gibson, Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, I'm too old for this sort of thing, So, but yeah, no, it's really enjoyable. Anyway, we've spoken about Hawkeye in our last episode. We've got a very specific reason to be here this week, and like I said, we've welcomed back Luke from Hydra Collectables. But Luke, how have you been? What have you been up to? Tell us about all the changes that you've been making in your channel.
Yeah, so I'm Luke from Hydra Collectables, where we're like a Geek Flag Fly, and we're primarily on YouTube, but also on Instagram, and I kind of dabble in the various Facebook groups like yourselves. And basically, I got to a stage with my channel where the term Hydra Collectables, I wanted to be all encompassing. I wanted to be every type of collection, whether it be toys, Funko Pops, whether it be comics, everything. And the sad truth is, 2 years into the YouTube journey, it's just not possible to do it that way. The algorithm just doesn't reward you when you're doing that. So I made the very hard decision to put all of my focus primarily into comic books. Now, that's not to say that other things won't come up, because they certainly will. However, they won't be the weekly content. They will be bonus videos, therefore keeping the weekly content solely for comic books. And with that, I've created some new segments, some new video ideas, which are going to be ongoing series on my channel, one of which I have already released called Ores with Flaws. This was because I was getting a little bit fed up, really, of so many people out there just seeking those 9.8s and getting them slabbed via CGC or CBCS. For those of you who don't know what slabbing is, it's the encapsulation of a comic book in hard plastic for its protection. And these tend to fetch more of a pretty penny when they're in that condition. So people really do hunt down these 9.8s, being the higher grade that you can get. And my channel is literally just going down this little rabbit hole of saying, look, you can have these older books. They don't have to be in this perfect condition, and they can be fantastic books to own. So that's the first video of my rebranding, my soft reboot for the channel. But yeah, plenty more to come. So please come along and check it out.
Nice. So we spoke about the slabbing, didn't we, the last time we was chatting, and I think I like the idea of having the older book. It's almost like it's like having an older car that's in a bit of a bad condition. You're not scared to drive it. Where if you had an old car that was absolutely perfect condition, you'd be like, no, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to drive it. I don't want to take it out. Where if you've got an older book, you're like, look, it's great. You can use it. You can feel the paper. You can look. You can turn the pages. It doesn't have to be sort of wrapped in cotton wool. So I think that's a really good message to put out. That actually, look, having this older stuff and being able to use it is good. Yeah,
and I think what people have to remember is some of these books, specifically like the older books, they came out in the 60s and they've survived till now. You're not going to damage them. As long as you treat them with respect, you're not going to damage them. I mean, even bagging and boarding comics is a very new premise. People never used to do it. So yeah, these books aren't going to suddenly fall apart just because you're looking at them.
If you have a book that's like 60 years old, it's survived the test of time. It's like one of those things, like it's a major wonder. And it's also the fact that, like people back then, they just would toss those things around. They would get damaged, creases, torn, messed up corners. So.
Yeah, it's not the, I wonder what the feeling was. I guess the feeling back then in the 60s wasn't that they was going to be expensive collectible items. 40, 50, 60 years later. But obviously, but I think now actually with collectible stuff, like almost anything gets that tag, doesn't it? That kind of like, oh, if it's a collection, it could be collectible. And it's like, I don't know. Does it do you know what I'm saying? Like, just because there's like a group of things that have been released, it's like people like want to buy them and keep them because they might be worth some money. And you're like, I don't know. I'm not sure I like that. But
I saw today somebody in one group had like these coins, and they were like collectible coins for each one of the Marvel movies. And there was like one for like Captain Marvel, Infinity War, Endgame, and all this kind of stuff. And they were like, do you think that these will be valuable one day? And somebody was like, oh, they're valuable right now because I'll buy them off of you. So like,
I think the main thing with the collectors category, and obviously like I said, my channel was initially about all collections. So I kind of have a little bit of an idea with this sort of stuff, focusing in other areas. If something is made and produced to be a collectible, it won't be.
Yeah.
It's the scarce things. And I mean genuinely scarce. I don't mean, a lot of people talk about Hulk 181, and I won't focus too much on it because it gets people's back up a little bit. But that's a book that is very plentiful. Now, it's certainly not rare. There are loads of them, but it is scarce because people keep hold of it. People don't want to let it go. Right. The same could be said for your Miles Morales and other modern books. However, those books from the 60s, when they first came out, they were intended to last a week and be thrown in the trash.
Yeah.
They were never intended to be kept. So that's what became popular. And nobody working on Spider-Man in those early years could ever have foreseen how great he would have become today.
And they didn't print as many copies either back then.
Nope.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's a good. Has anybody got any information of how many, like generally speaking, how many comics are printed? Just generally, like I mean of like a comic, like generally how many. I have literally. You could tell me 1,000, or you could tell
for
me
modern
100.
comics. It's into like the 100,000s. Like loads of them get printed. Back then, nobody really knows. Nobody really knows how many still exist because so many people did indeed throw them away. They didn't really keep records of that time. One thing that I will say, as a collector, AF15, for example, Amazing Fantasy 15, first appearance of Spider-Man, it's one of 3 Spider-Man books that I've still yet to get in my collection. Other than that, I have completed the set. And the honest truth about that book is I don't consider it to be rare. Because if you go on eBay and you type in Amazing Fantasy 15, a few of them will come up. And if you can see that many of them for sale, it can't be rare. It can't, there must be a lot more out there. So, people often talk about the comic book bubble, and I think that's wrong because that does indicate that there will be a burst and it will all fall apart. I like to consider the comic book industry or the hobby as riding the waves, and it goes up and down over the years.
Yeah. Just looking on eBay right now, there's plenty out there, and prices range from starting at bids at $25, and I see the highest one here at $80,000. So there's a very range of cost, and then also of the condition and amount out there. So just looking that up.
Which is really it's really funny talking about grades and stuff. Like I, for the first time ever, saw a book with the grade of 10 not too long ago. And that is like, that's like holy grail. If you ever find one that's like a 9.9 or a 10, like holy grail type of situation. But it's funny. It's like even comics today, it seems like you get one off the shelf and it almost is like already like messed up. There's already like something like wrong with it. Like the binding's messed up. The staples aren't right. Like it's already got a messed up corner. Like, I don't know.
Or people handling it. Yeah, people just handling it too.
It's like buying a new car. You buy a new car. The instant you buy a new car, it loses loads and loads of value. And the instant you pick up, the instant the comic comes out of off the press, pretty much, I guess, it's like that's it. The grade just starts dipping down. Once it goes on the shelf at the store, and then somebody picks it up, it's gone down again. Once somebody buys it, it goes down again. Once somebody reads it, it goes down again. And it just keeps dropping in grade, I guess. But
So this is why we have in the comic book collectors hobby, this is why so many people seek out the newsstand editions, because they were ones that were left out in the elements. They were the ones that you see in like a chemist or out on a newsstand, hence the name newsstand editions. And so to get those in higher grade are more sought after because they went through the process, they went through the rough times, whereas those that were direct to store would sit in a comic box quite safely, quite nestled. Yes, you're always going to get dings and dents. You're always going to suffer a little bit. But overall, it's those newsstand editions that collectors really hone in for. You mentioned about the grade 10s, and I love the idea of it. I love the idea of finding a grail book that I wanted as a grade 10. But what I don't personally understand, and each their own, no one should tell anyone how to collect, but I don't understand the people that just go for those because they're grade 10s and they don't care about the book itself. I'm not too sure about that one. We have to remember the slabbing is to protect the book. You have to still like what's inside.
It's probably more of a collector who's probably going to hold on to them, stockpile them, and then maybe in the future when they hit, then look to sell it. Like when an MC movie comes out or something like that. That's probably what they're doing. They don't care about the content. They just care about making a buck down the line at some point.
I've also seen people that like they buy comics and then they take them out of the slab, they press them, and then they try and like send them back in for a grade just because they think they can get like a higher grade. That's got to be, dangerous. It's going to be pushing your luck.
Yeah, I think Jorian's right there. You've probably got collectors that collect stuff because they love the stuff. They love the thing. They love the comic. They love the character. They love the figurine or whatever it is. The general subject of the thing that they're collecting, and then they just kind of they have a collection. They might not necessarily be fussed about the quality of the collection, but they just want the stuff. And then you probably get other people who couldn't give a monkey's what it actually is. They just want it to continue to trade. It's like a business for them.
It's like an investment.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It's almost like that. Do I take the Funko out of the box or do it in the box conversation?
Yes.
Leave it in the box.
I'll tell you what, before we move on to Spider-Man, look, I've got something I want to try and probe at you, because I know nothing about this. And my two sons always bang on about this, and they're right into it at the moment, is Pokemon cards. Do you know, Jaren's just laughed there. Do you know anything about Pokemon cards? Because I keep seeing these videos of these guys. They tend to be guys in their 20s, and they scream at the television, right? And they hurt my ears. And they're like, wow, we should start doing that, by the way, guys. It tends to get views like you wouldn't believe. You just scream, people are like, they must click on it because you scream. Anyway, so you tend to see guys in their mid-20s going crazy because they've unpacked or pulled, or whatever the word is, a card that's worth £350,000. And I'm like, really? Are there really Pokemon cards out there that someone will pay a card that someone will pay £350,000 for? Do they actually exist?
Unfortunately, yes. However, this goes back to the idea of manufactured scarcity. Like this has been made to be a collectible item. So this is where I'm saying that it won't be. This is something that the companies that create them have full control over, and it's technically a manipulation of the market. When it comes to trading cards are really hard to get in those high grades anyway, because the way they're cut, the way they're positioned, the borders around them, then you've got the dinks, the dents, and the damage and everything else. It's a whole different ball game to collecting comics. That being said, I really don't like it. The best way that I can compare it is to the ratio comics that you can get, like 1 in 10s, the 1 in 25. It's manufactured scarcity. It is manipulation from these big companies, and they're doing it to us, the people that are lining their pockets with our money. Sometimes I think that it really is a money grab.
I agree.
Which it's funny. It's like, so people get those cards graded too, and they send them in, they get them graded, they get them like to where they can actually take them and sell them. And it's like, I used to play Pokemon as a kid, and I still have all my Pokemon cards. Like 20 years later, I still have all my Pokemon cards, and some of them are kind of valuable. And I think to myself, like I have that attachment to it now. I'm like, I can't get rid of it because it's like, it was mine as a kid.
So I have a friend who actually had the elusive Charizard card, like the one that everyone goes mental for. And he found it in his house. So his parents were moving house, and he was helping them move. And up in the loft was his old Pokemon cards, and he found this Charizard. And he was so happy. He got it in a nice little frame, and he put it up on the side. And he was saying to me, Luke, that's worth X amount of hundreds of pounds.
How much
and I was
it?
like, okay, but would you buy it for that price? And he was like, oh, hell no. And I was like, in that case, you need to sell it. If you wouldn't pay that much for it, just the fact that you have it doesn't mean that you should keep hold of it. You should be selling that card. If you wouldn't go into the shop and pay that money for it, then you shouldn't have it.
Yeah.
How much was it worth? How much is it worth?
I think it was like 500 and something pounds.
Right,
that's kind of like the average for that sort of card.
And I think you're right there. What you've just said, like it's only worth that much if somebody actually buys it for that much. You can say, well, this is worth this, but if nobody wants to buy it, then it's worth nothing. Because you haven't sold it yet. It's only worth whatever you sell it for.
Yeah.
Not what you think it's worth.
Which it's funny talking about like cards and stuff. Like a lot of those packs, even like the actual plastic, the cellophane that you take off of the cards, even that's valuable. Like with the first edition Pokemon cards and stuff like that. Like people actually like collect that and want that too.
That's not even the best part. People sell the chance to get something, so they will sell sealed packs. And the beauty of this stuff is, what people have to remember, this does go back to comic books at the same time. A lot of this stuff came out in the 90s, and during the crash, when all of these comic shops shut down, all of these cards and all of these, comic books all got put into storage. And now, all these years later, when it's all bigging back up again, these people are going to those storage units and finding boxes upon boxes of the stuff. Now they're really clever because they're not releasing them all at the same time, because if they did, it would flood the market. They wouldn't be worth anything. But they're going through and selling these one at a time and putting their kids through college. Like, these people aren't idiots. When their store had to shut down in the 90s, they had all this stock. It literally had to go somewhere. It's in storage units. And this is why we find so many of these high grade items just keep coming back up onto the market. It's because they are out there and people have them.
Well,
don't even get me started on video games.
It reminds me too of those. You ever watch those storage wars where they bid on the auction on storage containers, and they're either containers or they're storage units? So one of the guys actually found a whole lot of comics in one of those. So
that dude Daryl Sheets.
Yep. So when those it was like a huge finance too. I think it was like a couple 100,000, wasn't it, or almost 1 million? I can't remember what it was.
I think it was like in the top 10 comic book collections or something like that in a comic. I mean, in a storage unit.
Yeah, so it makes you think that people, when they did shut down, they went into storage. Hopefully, those people were keeping their storage up because there was that one huge find. And I'm sure there's others out there that might be popping up. People passing away, people moving, forgetting about the storage unit. You know, something, one thing or another. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another one come back up, one of these, whether it's comic books or it's video games or something along those lines.
And not to go back to the storage unit thing, but I think he really missed the boat on that one, because I think that collection was worth like between $1 million or $2 million, and he sold it for like a couple $100,000. Just
he should have kept it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be insanely worth more money.
Because he bought the storage unit for like a couple $100, I think it was. He won the auction for. Yeah. You know, think about the profit on that. I would have held on to it for a while, especially now.
Could you imagine being the person that lost that storage unit? Like, looking back now, like, oh my gosh.
What did I lose? I got a friend who's he trades and buys and sells movie posters and banners and all sorts of basically all sort of print for movies. And he often, on a smaller scale, he often does what you guys were just talking about. He'll buy like a lot, you know, and it might be 300 posters, and he'll buy it for it's almost like a chance, you know, it's almost like what you were saying, Luke. I know it's slightly different, but it's almost like what you were saying about he'll buy a lot for £100, £150, knowing that actually most of the posters in there are probably only worth £1, but there'll be 1 or 2 in there that he can sell for 50, 60, 70 quid. And, you know, and it might not be, he might just about get his money back. They might all be £1, but if there's 100 posters and he buys it for £100, he's got, you know, he can do it. But he quite often does that. So you sort of get lucky every now and again, and all of a sudden you've got, you know, a big money earner in there.
It's that scarcity.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, good. Well, it sounds like I just winding back a little bit, Luke, to what you were saying earlier about just dialing in your focus a little bit more and just becoming a little bit more sort of singular and about what you're doing. I think that's a good idea. I heard somebody once say treble down on what you're good at. You know, so if you're good at something, just don't worry about the other stuff. Just absolutely throw yourself into that one thing that you're good at, because, you know, people don't want somebody who can kind of do a little bit of everything. They'll come to you for that very specific reason. So if you can sort of narrow your focus a little bit just into the comics bit, and then just every now and again, just for a bit of variation, you throw in one of these different videos, then you know, hopefully that's going to really work for you and your channel.
Yeah, I really hope so.
Good. Well, so with no further ado, one of the reasons we asked Luke back on is because Luke, as he's just kind of mentioned earlier on, he's a big Spider-Man fan. And look, you say you're missing 3 from the Amazing Spider-Man collection?
Yeah, so from the Amazing Spider-Man itself, which is a run that started in 1963 and goes all the way through to present day, I'm only missing 2 books. I'm missing issue number 1 and issue number 2. Which are getting ever so further out of my price range every day that goes past. Then on top of that, obviously, AF-15. Now, AF-15 is like the grail for a Spider-Man fan. It's his first appearance. But for me as a collector, like, the collection is ASM. So I have to complete that first, really. You know, that's kind of where I'm at. You know, I could get the AF-15, but then I still can't say I've got a full collection of Amazing Spider-Man, because it's not the same. But yeah, those are the only 3 books that I have yet to get hold of.
fair enough. So clearly a big Spider-Man fan. And when we spoke to you last time, Jarian said, we're having you back on when we're doing our Spider-Man preview and No Way Home preview and review. And that seems like ages ago now that you said that. And
I think it was about 9 months ago, to be honest. I think it really was a long time.
It feels like a long time ago.
Yeah, it does.
It's now. It's this week. It's this week. It's in the next few days. Luke, have you got your tickets, by the way?
I have. I was up at midnight, ready to put my tickets. So I said to my wife, I said, look, I will try and get us some tickets for the evening, because obviously she has to go to work during the daytime. So I was like, I will try and get us tickets. However, if I cannot get them for that day, please bear in mind that the next day I'm going first thing in the morning with or without you. So luckily I was lucky enough to get those tickets, and we are going together. But it does mean I've got that somewhat like 12-hour period of waking up that morning before I get to go see it. So there will be no internet that day.
Yeah, I'm the same. We're going at 4 on Wednesdays, so at 4 p.m. So I've got to wait for the kids to go home from school, because we all go together as a family. So, but anyway, you know, we don't have to worry about these two. We've got 2 days on these two.
Where are you going, Alex? When are you going to go?
I don't know. So I still haven't bought my tickets yet, but here the theaters are really funny. Like, so after the first day, you can normally get tickets, like never have any issues. So I haven't found out how many people are going yet. So I'm still trying to coordinate with some friends on like going to see it. So it'll probably be maybe the 16th, I'm hoping, you know.
Cool.
Yeah, we're going Friday here. We're going like the first showing on Friday, because during the daytime, no one's going here where we live. So we're taking my son to school that day, going first thing Friday. And then my daughter's like, nope, I'm not going. I'm staying in school. I'm like, all right, 3 of us will go then. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, talking about tickets before we get into the actual movie itself. So what I tried to do, or what I've done with Black Widow, with Shang-Chi, and with Eternals, is gone opening day and sat dead center at the back in the IMAX screen, right? And I've been on there pretty quickly, you know, on the theaters page to book the tickets, like the day that they've come out, pretty much, and not had a problem. Fine, straight in. This one, exactly the same time on the day they came out, gone. Ticket gone, like for good seats, you know, center at the back, IMAX, gone. Even really for normal screens. I mean, we are center at the back, but it's a normal screen. It's not IMAX, but even that was a push, because I was like, I really wanted a little bit later to give the kids a bit more time to get home from school. But later we didn't have the right tickets. But point I'm trying to make is clearly this is far more popular, far more sought after to get tickets for opening day than the other 3 Marvel releases from this year. I mean, I guess it's because it's Spider-Man, number one. You know, he is the superhero. I mean, alongside Batman and Superman, he's probably the one that everybody would say, isn't it? If you went and asked your nan about a superhero, she'd probably say Spider-Man, Batman, or Superman. But I also think it's because of the gravity of the movie. I don't know what you guys feel about it, but it's clearly going to change a lot, not just in regards to the MCU, but in regards to the Sony side of things as well. It's looking more and more, with everything that we're hearing and seeing, and, you know, the little post-credit scenes that we've had in other movies and stuff like that, that actually, are they going to continue to work together? We had that little rumor the other week that there's going to be another trilogy after this. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So real quick though, I think this is going to probably be the biggest comic book movie. I think so. This is going to be bigger than Endgame, bigger than Infinity War. It's going to be the biggest movie. Just pre-sales numbers, it's already tracking.
Right. I was going to say, in what way, in regards to financial?
Box office. And so, you know, I can understand why there was some uncertainty in waiting on the trailer releases because of the pandemic and them wanting to make sure this was just crushing at the box office. But one thing I'm just like, this week I've seen probably 3 or 4 clips. I'm sorry, not this week, just this weekend only. I've seen 3 or 4 new clips of the movies. I'm like, come on, man, you're a few days out. Stop releasing clips out on the internet. Why are you doing this?
You know, you can not watch them.
I know, but I do the new stuff, so it's like I watch everything because I read and watch everything. I'm like, well, I'm reading the article, might as well watch the clip too.
Might as well watch the clip. Yeah, that's it. What are your thoughts on that? Because obviously we haven't spoke to you, Luke, since the trailers have come out. We knew very, very little when we spoke to you about the last time we spoke to you about Spider-Man. So just generally speaking, what are your thoughts? What are your expectations for Wednesday?
So I'm going to love this movie no matter what. Being a Spider-Man fan, I'm going to enjoy this. But I think everyone really needs to get their expectations in line because we have not been promised anything. And yes, we've got these villains. And yes, we believe and we hope that we're going to see multiple Spider-Men. But if it doesn't happen, they haven't lied to us and we got to accept that. Like, don't start hating on Sony or hating on Disney because they didn't deliver what you thought you were going to see. So I just really hope that doesn't have such a negative impact. However, if even what we've seen, even if we do get the multiple Spider-Men in this movie, I think there's going to be so much more. I think there's going to be so much more to talk about. I think these are minor incidents in the grand scheme of things. I think so much more is happening.
It's funny you mentioned that too, because in our group, someone posted, if you don't see, Toby and Andrew Spider-Man, are you going to be disappointed? And I'm just like, you know what? If it happens, it happens. It doesn't, it doesn't. I'm going to enjoy the movie. Whatever shows up, whether it's Sinister 5, Sinister 6, Sinister 4, Sinister 3, 3 Spider-Man, 1 Spider-Man, 5 Spider-Man, I'm still going to enjoy the movie. I don't care.
I was just going to say, and the thought of seeing that like nostalgia on screen of every character that we've seen play Spider-Man since the early 2000s is like, that would be insane, and that's exciting, but you can't get your hopes up, like Luke said.
There must be some sort of surprise left over. There must be something because, we've seen Doc Ock, we've seen Green Goblin, we've seen Electro, we've seen Sandman, we've seen Lizard. So we've seen these 5 villains in this movie. They've got to be something,
I've had theories. I've sat there and I've thought about all this stuff. But the truth is that you can go too deep with that stuff. You can ruin the film for yourself because of this expectation. You build it up in your head. I've gone from saying that when Doctor Strange is saying they're all coming through, that we're going to get every single iteration of characters across every Marvel movie we've ever seen, from the X-Men to Blade to everyone, all piling in, purely because Disney have all this on Disney Plus, and they can show it all to us. Make everything into a part of the MCU, because these would all just be variants, or we could have it that maybe he can't save MJ in time, but then we have Andrew Garfield swooping in and grabbing her and saving her. A redemption arc. Even to the point where I was having a discussion with another YouTuber about whether or not Green Goblin and Ned Leeds actually get sucked into a portal together, and in another few movies' time, we see Ned return with Goblin gear as the Hobgoblin. We've speculated on all this stuff, but at the end of the day, we just have to wait. We just have to wait and see.
Or what if we get like a Peter Peter moment like Darth Vader and Luke, where he finds out someone's his father? I don't know. Parents pop back through. I don't know. Something crazy could happen like that. It's
that
like all
could
of a sudden,
be,
Toby's like, "Hey, Peter, whatever. I'm your father." I don't know.
That would be a turn up for the books, wouldn't it?
The one thing that I do want, if we do get Tobey Maguire in this film, all right. The only thing that I want from Toby is for him to say the classic line, "With great power comes great responsibility," and I will be a very happy man.
Yeah. We haven't heard that. We haven't heard that yet, have we?
But I could see that. I could see Aunt May having that moment there with Peter. I don't know.
There's a lot wrong. I'm going to start upsetting people now. I've been rewatching these Spider-Man movies in the build-up to going to see the film. And the one thing that watching these back to back over the course of a week has proven is that MCU Spider-Man isn't a good Spider-Man. It's not he's not Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and I love Tom Holland and I love watching those films. I do find them very enjoyable, but watching them back to back and comparing them to the other 2 Spider-Man that we have, this is a young kid who was given everything by a tech billionaire. He's never suffered. He's never, we don't even know who Uncle Ben is.
Yep.
Right. This kid hasn't lost anything. And yet when you look at Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, one that often gets missed out, if you take those two movies and treat that as Spider-Man's origin story, saying this is how Spider-Man is created, you start to realize that we were really done wrong by not getting that third movie, because the death of Uncle Ben in the first movie, the death of Gwen Stacy in the second movie, spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't seen these films, they are what mold Spider-Man. And you need those stories. And the other thing as well about The Amazing Spider-Man, I won't go on too long about it.
No, keep going. I like this.
With the Raimi films, there was a lot that people didn't like. They said that his suit was too high end, like someone had made it for him. So they made the suit in The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield look a lot more homemade. They then said, we gave Mary Jane a lot of Gwen Stacy storylines, like with On the Bridge with Green Goblin. Well, then they gave us Gwen Stacy. We didn't like the organic web shooters. Well, okay, now he makes his web shooters. They ticked all of these boxes, and so much so that we even heard rumors with the Raimi days that Spider-Man 4 with Sam Raimi was going to include the Lizard. Well, what villain did we get in that first Andrew Garfield movie? We got the Lizard. Sony gave the audience everything that they asked for, and everyone still didn't like it. And so this is my biggest concern with going into this movie. If the 3 Spider-Men are not in there, don't hate on Sony, because they have not promised you anything.
And the Amazing Spider-Man movies too, they were setting the Sinister Six up so perfectly. In that arc, yes, the Rhino was terrible in the mechanical suit, but that flash at the end of all the different things, Doc Ock tentacles, the guy talking to Harry in jail, whatever, all that kind of stuff. It's like they were setting it up so perfectly to transition into that Sinister Six film, which was the rumor third film for Garfield.
What year was that come out? What year did that come out? The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
So it was 4 years. Andrew Garfield's films were 4 years after the Maguire, and then he only kind of lasted 4 years before they then recast him over at Disney, because that was the biggest downfall. Disney said we can do this deal, we can have Spider-Man in our MCU, but we want to pick the actor. Well, at that point, Sony should have said, that's fine, have Spider-Man in your movie, but we're going to carry on with our one separate. Because that's effectively now what we're going to end up with, right? If these other Spider-Men are in this film and they go back to their worlds afterwards, Sony really could carry on those movies. We could have Tobey Maguire now with his family, raising his children who may or may not have powers, and that can be a whole different set of films that Sony could really delve into. So this could open up a true Spider-Verse. We could. Right. The problem is that they didn't trust us fans in the beginning to understand that they were separate movies.
And even Kirsten Dunst, who plays Mary Jane in the Maguire series, has said she wants to return and play an older MJ with children and that kind of stuff. So there's some breadcrumbs there.
I also think it would be kind of a cool idea to see like maybe Toby or Andrew be like a mentor to like Miles Morales too at one point, and them to like mention that in that movie if they are in this actual movie. But
I doubt we'll see Miles though in this third film. I could see them giving us another breadcrumb teaser like they did in Homecoming, with whole Aaron and my nephew and that kind of stuff, but I don't think we'll see anything substantial about Miles in this series.
Yeah, the problem that I think I mentioned this last time that I was on with you guys, because we were talking about favorite Spider-Man, and I originally said, oh yeah, Tobey Maguire's my favorite Peter Parker, Andrew Garfield my favorite Spider-Man, and then I made the joke that Tom Holland was just Miles Morales. They literally took everything from Miles, including his best friend, and just changed the names and changed the situation. So to bring Miles in now, they've kind of already used his stories with Tom Holland. So that needs to come later. That needs to come much, much later down the line. That opinion, however, has now changed. Since watching those films this week, Andrew Garfield is my favorite Peter Parker. He's my favorite Spider-Man. He is the dude. He is the best. People moan about him not being geeky enough or being like the one that's picked on, but he's still an outcast. And what we have to remember is that Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, that kid has had it hard. He was old enough to know that his parents were leaving him, and yet he didn't know why. So he's got abandonment issues. Then he had to suffer his Uncle Ben dying. Then he had to suffer Gwen Stacy dying. And she was the only person that truly knew all of him. She knew the secret. She knew everything. And now she is gone. And seeing that scene at the end of the movie of him by her grave as the seasons pass through, oh my gosh, does my heart bleed for that kid. You know, that is Spider-Man. That is the origin of Spider-Man that we need. And if he is in this movie, and if he survives, and if he goes back to his own universe, having saved the MJ of the MCU and gaining back some like confidence about him losing Gwen, I really hope that Sony do another film with Andrew Garfield.
Yes, he's my favorite one. I'm so glad you said that, because those are my favorite movies, is the Andrew Garfield ones. So
plus adding to the loss on that too, like you have to think like he also was there when Gwen's father dies and promises him
protect her.
that he will not like be a part of her life and he will step back, and then in the next movie she dies, and it's like
and the kid feels guilt for that. He sees the ghost of Stacy. You know, he sees him there every time he's doing something that he feels like he shouldn't. There's a like physical manifestation right there in front of him. The best Spider-Man truly is. And I would really like to encourage people to go back and watch those movies, because nothing against Tom Holland, nothing against the MCU. But I mean, even my wife said, she was like, does he actually have powers, or does the suit do everything for him? You know, that's the problem. That's the problem we have with this little Iron Man Jr. running around in the MCU.
But Holland does have powers, though, because he showed that against the Vulture. Remember, he lifted himself out of...
Absolutely. But it was just
rubble.
funny that my wife, who isn't a comic book fan, actually said, "Oh, is he just got a suit?" You know, she didn't really. It's hard, you know. But we assume that we assume that the audience knows as much as we do, you know, as diehard fans. And sometimes it's a scary place when the movie executives think that everybody knows. You know, some kids are growing up and they just believe that is the backstory. They believe that there is no Uncle Ben and that Tony Stark gave Spider-Man a suit.
Yeah, the whole. Go ahead, Andy.
I was going to say, if you look at something we was talking about just earlier on the show, if you look at the depth that they've gone into with some of the recent characters, i.e. Hawkeye, the depth that they're going into. And I get that they've got a show and they can show you this weekly, and with a show it kind of grows on you in a different way than a movie does. I understand that, but the depth that they've gone into him as a character, as a person, as they did with Loki, as they did with Wanda, as they did with Sam and Bucky, they've gone really, you really find out who these people are. Who is Tom Holland's Peter Parker? Like, what is it? What has he got about him?
Exactly.
I just saw that look on your face, Luke.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That kind of like, no, I don't know, not really much. And
they touch upon it. So they touch upon it in that first film with the Vulture. You know, when he says, if you can't do it without the suit, you don't deserve it.
Yep.
But to me, that's too little, too late. Like you've already had him in Civil War. You've had him in those. It just, and then they put him straight back in the suit again afterwards anyway. So he's not. The thing that people love about Spider-Man is that he's Peter Parker. You know, Bruce Wayne is Batman, but he is Batman. You know, Batman is the key role. Peter Parker is who we connect to. Peter Parker is the one that we attach ourselves to, and we go, isn't it cool that someone so much like us who deals with these real world things is also a superhero? You know, those two go hand in hand, two sides of the same coin. Whereas Bruce Wayne, I mean, who cares what Bruce Wayne gets up to? We care about when he's Batman.
Yeah, you can't relate to him, can you? I was just reading some She-Hulk stuff today, and there was a little bit in there where she tries to get, she gets Spider-Man to sue J. Jonah Jameson, right? For like defamation of character or whatever it is. But basically, what's about to happen is Jameson is about to be stung with like $300 million that's going to be paid to Spider-Man for him to do whatever he wants with. And he's all of a sudden, he's going to buy new suits. He's going to buy a layer. He's going to buy this. He's going to buy that. And then one thing leads to another. I don't know if anybody's read the story, but they basically implicate Peter Parker as well. So they're going to sue Peter Parker. So then Peter's like, oh no, like, what am I going to do?
Because Peter Parker's been committing fraud all these years, right? He's been taking photos of himself and selling them
Yeah, exactly. But and then he goes, "Oh no, like I can't." So basically, he then has to then go to She-Hulk and just as Spider-Man and say, "I want to drop the case. Like I want to drop the case," and that's it. But for a moment, you were almost going to get Peter Parker with $300 million.
Yep.
And in that instant, I get what you was kind of saying. It was almost like he'd have nothing to worry about, and he would then be out of reach from us. Like he wouldn't be us anymore, would he?
This is why Aunt May can't die. This is why she's been around for so long. Like this old broad ain't going anywhere because she is the only thing that Peter has. Yes, he can have Mary Jane and he can have Gwen Stacy and all these other characters come in and out, but Aunt May is the sole purpose. I mean, that's the only reason why he has a secret identity. You know, all these other characters, I am Iron Man. Oh, look, there's Thor. You know, these characters, they don't need their secret identities, but Spider-Man does, and it's to protect Aunt May. And so therefore, a lot of people are saying, oh, maybe Aunt May will die in this No Way Home movie. And I can see them doing that. But what a mistake that would be. You know, all of a sudden then you've got Aunt May dead, no mention of Uncle Ben, and a kid who just got given everything by a tech billionaire. That is the most unrelatable thing that anyone can imagine. I think I would have to, I wouldn't say I would stop watching because I still love them, but it's not good. It's not good.
And that's why we haven't seen much depth with Holland's Spider-Man. The only thing we've seen with him is, you know, him disappointing Stark, him looking at Stark, him being the next Stark, him with Stark's legacy. It's all tied to Stark. We haven't seen Peter Parker as on his own in the MCU, and hopefully we'll see something along those lines. But the way we're setting up, he's already running to Doctor Strange to kind of be that surrogate for Tony Stark in No Way Home.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel so cheated about Aunt May finding out he was Spider-Man at the end of the first movie.
Yes.
Because for anyone that's read the comics, it's in like the 400s area. They actually go through a really awkward number change. I made a video about it, so go check out Hydra Collectables on YouTube. Little shameless plug there. But yeah, go and check it out for the numbering. But there's a story there where Spider-Man is literally almost beaten to death. And Aunt May is so worried, having not heard from Peter, that she goes round to his apartment, lets herself in, and she finds him still wearing the costume, all bloody and bruised. And oh my God, you know, the fact that this poor woman, you know, was she feared Spider-Man all these years, and she realized it was her nephew all along. Like, we were robbed of that stuff. And the MCU does this a lot. The MCU plays things for jokes and takes away the true depth. And I think we mentioned that last time when I was on here as well. But it's such a shame. It really is, because they have this audience, this, you know, as kids, we read these comic books and they molded who we became. Kids nowadays aren't reading comic books. They're going to these movies or they're playing the games. They need to learn their morals from this stuff. They need to see that heartache, that pain, that, you know, they need to learn from these movies. At the moment, you might as well be saying, look, here's someone's just going to give you everything in life. You know, make a YouTube channel. You're going to be successful. I can tell you, it is harder than it looks. You know, he is an unrelatable character, and that is the biggest danger moving forward, because like we said, if no one's willing to pay the money for these collectibles, they're not going to be worth anything. And if the next generation or the generation after that can't relate to Peter Parker Spider-Man, well, then those AF-15s ain't going to be worth squat.
And he's saying, Lucas saying similar to kind of what Steven said too, about how the MCU is too comedy and how they're not taking things seriously or providing that depth. That's similar to what a previous guest Steve said as well, about how he thinks about the MCU and how they're handling things.
Yeah, I agree.
My bad. I was just gonna say, and with Garfield and Maguire's movies, you actually have that journey of like even him building the costume.
Yep.
And they didn't even like, it was just kind of like, oh, in the MCU, it's like, oh, look at how terrible your costume is. Well, I got you a new one with an upgrade. You know, like there was none of that. But they spent like the time developing that. Like I remember, I think it was in Toby's movie, he drew like everything on the costume on a sketch pad before. You know, like. And part of Spider-Man's charm is that like ability of his to actually like adapt and build things and design things. Like I love that scene where Andrew Garfield is like making the web shooter and it like shoots the bio cable out, you know, so cool.
Or that one, or the electricity one, the one, or the part 2 with Electro when he's electrocuting going through the trials and he almost burns the shed down. That scene I love too as well, because that's Parker right there.
Yeah,
but we haven't seen any of that personality in Tom Holland's
No, because when we saw him, he already had the suit, he already had the goggles, kind of already had that thing. We didn't see any of that, and that's why I'm glad they announced freshman year, even though it's animated. I hope we see some of that journey of Parker becoming Spider-Man and some of those struggles and challenges, because we saw none of that.
Yeah. Well, I think they had that throwaway line when he meets Tony about, what was it? He found a cool DVD player, something in the trash or something that you assume that he's going to take apart and use, but like,
that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah.
This is the problem. The scholarship from Tony Stark was just a cover story. The real Peter Parker would be getting scholarship offers all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he is a tech genius. I had a friend ask me literally yesterday saying, you know, if he's such a tech genius, why didn't he make more of himself? To which I refer to Superior Spider-Man, with Dr. Octopus actually taking over his body, and he did do something about it. You know, he built up Parker Industries and everything else. Now, the reason why Peter wouldn't do that is because of his moral obligations. You know, the fact that he had Uncle Ben in his life and the guilt of Gwen Stacy and wanting to help others. He needs to keep the mind that he has and the web shooter technology and everything else for himself to be able to help people. So it comes from a selfless place. It comes from a very, you know, whereas Dr. Octopus just wanted to make money, and he was like, here we go, I'm gonna create this empire, and he done it. And to be fair, it didn't last very long, because as soon as Peter got his body back, it all fell apart, whether it be on purpose or by accident. You know, he needs to keep his intellect. You know, this is the problem. You know, Peter Parker is a downtrodden character all the time. You know, he has these amazing abilities, and the fact that he wanted to at first go on television and be famous and everything else. You know, can you imagine if Uncle Ben never died and he actually went and did all that? He wouldn't be the character he is now.
Mm. Yeah, very much made him. All of these little hits in his life kind of made him the person he is. Do you know what? I think we've really got stuck into Spider-Man more. Actually, I think we've kind of got stuck into Spider-Man rather than we have into No Way Home, which it's not a problem. It's not a problem. But I think that side of the conversation has been really, really interesting. Hopefully people listening have maybe not necessarily changed their minds, but maybe we've just opened their eyes to a few different things that have been going on with Spider-Man especially in the MCU over the last few years. But Luke, something I wanted to touch on before we finish up is with No Way Home coming up. It's such a strange story. Are there any comics that you know of in your Spider-Man life that people could look at and sort of go, oh, I can see where they've drawn some inspiration for these stories?
So there isn't anything that I could think of that directly, you know, pinpoints to it with like all the villains and everything else, but certainly the Spider-Verse in general, you know, and this was something that came out. I think they've done the Spider-Verse story a couple of times now. I think we've had Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon, two fantastic series. And this is where characters like Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales all came from, including some really, really funny other Peter Parker versions. You know, if you want to get into the whole variant idea, you know, we've got Cowboy Spider-Man and we've got, you know, Spider Horse, you know, we've got all these, even the horse wears a mask because they don't want to show who he really is. But there's some great characters in there. So I would recommend people to check those out if you like the idea of the multiverse. However, if it's just about this movie and the characters within, I would recommend people to either go online and find via the apps or indeed get some reprints of some of the original Spider-Man stories. So all of those first appearances, you know, whether it be Sandman in issue number 4, the Green Goblin in issue 14, you know, just see who those characters truly are before even the Raimi films, before the Andrew Garfield films. You know, one of my biggest gripes, you know, the Lizard is my favorite Marvel character of all time, right? I hate that he doesn't wear a lab coat or that he doesn't have like the elongated snout.
Elongated nose, yeah.
Yeah, and it really bothers me, but I still really enjoy it. Yeah, I'm glad that we got to see it. I mean, at the end of the day, we can be moany fans or we can just enjoy what we get. And there's nothing better than seeing stuff that we thought could never be shown on screen, you know? So again, you know, going back to things like Venom, and he didn't have the Spider-Man origin story. It's okay because it's a guilty pleasure anyway. I just like seeing Venom up on the screen. You know, he doesn't have to be, you know, we don't have to always go into the origins. And that's one thing that they have always proven. Or if you do go to the origins, do something different. You know, the fact that the MCU just flat out ignores Uncle Ben, I think, is really out of order. Do something different with it. You don't have to show it again, but do something different. The one thing that I will show you guys, so obviously I know you guys are mostly audio, a podcast, but maybe this will go out on YouTube channel as well. They did do some comic books, and I think these were both Walmart exclusives. But this is the first appearance of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. So this is the first time he is in comic book form. Nice. And these are movie adaptations of those movies. And so here we also have the issue 1 of the Andrew Garfield. So, you know, there's a lot of speculation channels out there. I don't do speculation myself. You know, I don't want to tell people what they should or shouldn't buy. But I do like to tell stories. And I do like to say, if you're unaware, there is this or there is that. I don't think you're going to make a fortune on these books. Don't rush out and buy them. I don't think you're going to make the money, but they're fun. They're fun to have. And you get to see these movie characters exist in a different format. So not speculation, but something to check out.
And that's what we was talking about earlier, though, wasn't it? If you're interested in these characters, you're interested in these stories, go and buy these comics. If they happen to, you know, look after them and respect them. And if they happen to be worth something in 20 years' time, fantastic, well done. But you've enjoyed them for what they are, exactly. rather than bought them to make a quick buck.
Well, this is also why I say to people, you know, read these books online. You know, read them any way you can, because it's the story that matters. You know, a lot of people with the slabbing and everything else. You know, I've debated time and time again, would I buy a coverless book? And I think the answer is yes, because there is so much more to it than just the cover, you know. So if I could only get an AF-15 coverless, fine, because there is so much more to that book than just the cover. I know it's an iconic cover, but you can get a reprint, you can get a print out, put it on your wall, you know, do something else. Read the stories. The stories are what matter.
So you mentioned Sandman and Lizard, and, you know, just throwing us out there, what does everyone think about in the trailer when Strange says they all died in their previous universes, when we know that Lizard and Sandman didn't die at the end of those films?
But in those universes, so those universes have carried on since those films were made. So as we've got the other versions, they have fought those characters again multiple times, or they might just be variants. They might be from a completely different universe to what we know.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they explain that and how they go out talking about that, because a lot of people got caught up on that from the trailers. But also, too, do we think Sinister Six is going to happen or no? I have my thoughts on this, but I'll let you guys go first.
This is not a Sinister Six movie, despite what people might think. You know, having multiple villains. Oh, one other thing that I will say, going back to Tobey Maguire, you know, everyone hates on Spider-Man 3, and the biggest argument is there was too many villains. Well, there's a lot more in this one. You can't play that argument anymore. And that film, in my rewatch this week, isn't as bad as people make out. You know, Topher Grace was a good Eddie Brock, you know, and that Venom suit, when it had the face, looked good. You know, it's only because they peeled it back to show the actor, you know, it's not as bad as people think. I mean, Sandman's ace in that film.
Yeah, Hayden Christian Church. Yeah. Is that his name? I think he's excellent anyway. Yeah. I think he's brilliant. I think he's a great actor. I hope we see him again in his human form, or just as himself, or just he's acting rather than just a big.
Yeah, it would be really harsh to not see like the Sandman and the Lizard and everything in there. One thing that I want to say, so you know, with the scene where they're jumping and everyone says, "Oh, there's clearly other Spider-Men there." There's so many other options that people aren't thinking about. So Dr. Octopus isn't in that scene because I think he's a good guy in this movie.
Exactly.
You know, a lot of people are saying about the mechanical hands and the way that the nanotechnology is going through him. When he first appears, he's got the red in the tentacles, which means that the tentacles are in charge. Once he has that nanotechnology go over him, I reckon that fixes it. I reckon he's back in charge, and he is not a bad person. He is not a bad man. And I think that he could very well be one of the characters jumping in that scene. The other one might be Doctor Strange. It could be Venom. I don't think it is Venom, but it could be. You know, there are other options than saying, "Oh, it's the 3 Spider-Men."
Do you think Venom's going to be in it though?
I think we will see Venom in an after credit scene.
Yep.
And in my head, I said this in a previous video. In my head, I think we're going to see Venom stopping a mugger down in a alley or something, and he's about to bite the head off or eat the brains. We're going to see a web shoot across. He'll turn. The camera will turn with him, and we will just see, fully in costume, so we won't know who's playing the role, Spider-Gwen.
Ooh.
And that will be it. It will cut to black. So we've got those 2 characters in that universe, because Marvel is loving the gender swap characters at the moment. They're bringing all these female characters in as well, who are equally good in their own right. And I just think that they're not going to sit on Spider-Gwen. They will sit on Miles Morales. They'll sit on that one. They'll bring that one later. They're gonna bring Spider-Gwen in as soon as possible.
Oh, he's confident. He's confident. Look at that confidence when he sold that story. That was.
Who would you like to see play Spider-Gwen? Kind of curious.
I love Emma Stone.
Yeah, I liked her too.
One of my friends pointed out, like, maybe she's getting a bit too old to do it now, or she's an Oscar-winning actress. Why would she come back? But so many of these actors are Oscar-winning.
I was going to say,
I would love for her to reprise the role, but I'm not against it if she doesn't. And if they don't show the face, if it's just the costume standing there, they can make their mind up in 2-3 years' time. They can work out those deals then.
So, Luke, an idea of mine that I was talking about a few weeks ago, and I still think it's a good idea. Have you watched Cobra Kai?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So you've got Johnny in there, who's the hero of that story. Yeah.
Yep.
But obviously, back in the 80s in Karate Kid, he was the villain of the story, and Daniel was the hero. And now, actually, when you watch Cobra Kai, Daniel's almost like the villain a little bit, and Johnny's the hero. And I thought, what a great idea it would be to have, because, the Venom that we've got at the moment, Tom Hardy's Venom, he's the hero of his own movies, isn't he, really? Even though he is still a villain as such, wants to do bad things. Tom Holland or Peter Parker, Spider-Man, he is the hero of his movies. I thought, what a great idea it would be to have like a brace of movies, 2 movies, almost, they wouldn't call it this, but Spider-Man versus Venom, and then Venom versus Spider-Man. And in each movie in Spider-Man's movie, it's through his eyes, it's his perspective. He's the hero, Venom's the villain. And then in the Venom movie, it's from his perspective, and Venom's the hero and Spider-Man's the villain. And I just thought that would be a really cool, a really cool way of portraying both characters as the hero, but also as the villain for the other one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what a lot of comic book people already know that a lot of general audiences probably don't, is that Venom is only a villain in the Spider-Man universe. Yep. It's because Eddie Brock and the symbiote feel cheated by Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And so once Eddie Brock and Venom move away, with Spider-Man out of sight, out of mind, they're happy to be the hero. They're happy to fight for what's right. It is only when they're against Spider-Man that true hatred comes out. So they're not villainous in any way. Like, you're not going to see Venom going robbing banks and stuff. That's not who he is. But you would with the other villains. You would with the other characters. So it's just it's a relationship of hate between 2 characters. That's literally all it is.
So I completely agree on your statement about Doc Ock, and I think the nanotech from the Iron Spider suit turned him to kind of snap him out of being the evil, the armors being in control. So I think we see Doc Ock a villain briefly, but then he switches sides. I'm not 100% sold on if there's going to be more than 4 villains, if even that in the film. I definitely think Goblin's a villain in there. Electro, Sandman, I can see going back and forth, maybe possibly depending how they play the backstory of Sandman. Even though we saw that one scene. Does that change, kind of like we saw him change in Spider-Man 3 as well? Spider-Man 3.
What we have to remember as well is that Disney/Marvel are known for lying in their trailers. Yep. I mean, the Infinity War trailer showed Hulk, and he was nowhere to be seen in that movie. What I would love for say there's no other characters in here, right? Say if even like the Mexican version where we saw the lizard do a funny turn. Say if that was even put in on purpose, right? Just to wind us up. I would love if there was just one Spider-Man jumping against like 2 villains, or maybe a few more, And what if Sandman is a good guy and he's literally appearing behind them in order to take them out?
Exactly.
If you listened to him, he said that.
Yep.
Jaren's already said that.
Yep. Exactly. So it's interesting to see how they do that with all these people in the film. I also want to see if any of this is going to give us any more ties to Morbius as well, and what universe Morbius is in, because we know that Adrian Toomes' Vulture is crossed over to Morbius's universe, or if they're in the same universe. Also in the Morbius trailer, we've seen, Spider-Man, that poster about Spider-Man, and that the Daily Bugle paper that had Black Cat and Rhino as well. So I wonder if we see any more clues for that. Maybe instead of seeing Spider-Gwen, we see Black Cat, for example, maybe in a post-credit scene. But I don't think the second post-credit scene will be anything major. Everything I'm hearing rumors-wise is that it's going to be the Doctor Strange trailer. Is going to be the second post-credit scene. Is everything I'm hearing from out there.
That's pretty major.
Yeah,
that's pretty major.
Yeah, everything I've been hearing the last couple of days, doing all the new stuff, all that kind of stuff, is that the second post-credit scene is leaning towards being Doctor Strange. Everyone's saying the Doctor Strange trailer is done. It's not a matter of if they're going to drop this year, it's when. And I could see that being the second post-credit scene, because we know this is probably going to tie directly into Multiverse of Madness.
Will we get any sniff of Craven as well now that ATJ
exactly. That'd be kind of awesome. You kind of see a spear being chucked at Parker or Spider-Man when he's like swinging through New York, and then also we see a shot of Craven is standing there. That'd be kind of cool too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be interesting,
because we know that Aaron Taylor Johnson's been casted. He's been getting buff for it, so he's ready for the role. And so be interesting to see that also. And as far as the Sinister Six goes, I think Sony's going to make their own movie for Sinister Six. There's still that unnamed movie for 2023 that we don't know what it is. And with Morbius and Craven and with No Way Home and all this kind of stuff, I can see that turning into a Sinister Six movie, a true villain movie.
What people have to be careful with, because there's been some misquoting around this other trilogy that Sony have said they're making. It's not going to be part of the MCU. This is going to be completely separate. Spider-Man is due to have one more appearance in MCU, and whether or not they'll create another deal after that, I anticipate that all of this whole, there's not really a big bad for this phase of the MCU. It's pretty much just multiverse. So I can really see Secret Wars happening by the end of it all. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's when we get Spider-Man going over there. And maybe he'll be wearing his new black suit and everything else. Maybe that will happen. But I can see Secret Wars being that big event. And maybe it's actually hosted by Kang the Conqueror instead of, the Beyonder.
Beyonder and Doom and that kind of stuff.
Who knows? Again, we'll have to wait and see and find out. Personally, I still think that they are missing a trick if they don't say they're all coming through, and we see Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman, and we see every version, every single version of every single movie.
Chris Evans flying in.
Everyone, see absolutely everyone, because you're getting these actors back for one scene, and you never have to see them again, because Doctor Strange is going to fix it all in Multiverse of Madness.
So what if we don't see that in this film, but that's how Multiverse of Madness starts? Because there is rumors of Patrick Stewart, Captain Carter, possibly Wolverine showing up in Multiverse of Madness.
Well, that was the thing, wasn't it? So back with WandaVision, we heard that Kevin Feige had met up with Patrick Stewart, and we all assumed that he was going to appear in WandaVision, and it didn't happen. But now that could come round. I think you're onto something. I think that could be, again, it's all speculation. I love it, but I hate it all at the same time.
if that happens too, I want to see some kind of Illuminati play in Multiverse of Madness. Be like, pull him into another place. Maybe it's some kind of like middle dimension or something like that. And that that's where the Illuminati kind of starts off saying, you have to fix this because it's doing this. Maybe we see a live action Watcher. I don't know. Maybe we get a name or tease.
Multiversal.
Yep.
I mean, make each member of the Illuminati from a different universe.
Exactly. Because there's been mention of Doombots, or not Doombots, Ultron bots as well being in Multiverse of Madness as another rumor. So I don't know. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe Ultron himself is a Illuminati for multiverse. Who knows? But that'd be interesting as well.
This has just gone crazy. This has just gone mental. Are we going to have David Hasselhoff turning up as well? Like flying
You know what? I would say yes. But the thing is that we have to look at what's on Disney Plus, because since gaining back Fox and gaining back these other characters, they can do this. And this is the last film they're doing with Sony. So it's the only chance to have that toy box tipped open and have everyone in one movie. So that's why I think it should happen in this movie as the final scene, as opposed to in another movie, because then the Sony characters won't be there.
True.
Like, you need to have everyone, you know. So obviously, we, having seen the post-credit scene for Venom 2, we have to assume that Venom knows the character of Spider-Man.
Yep.
So I'm basing that on the theory of the more modern take of the comics, with the symbiotes all being like the hive mind. So maybe Topher Grace's Venom is connected to our Venom in that way. So that's why they know of each other. Because if not, it's just not going to work any other way. Again, he needs to have known who Spider-Man is, or, well, no, more importantly, he needs to know who Peter Parker was.
Yep.
Because he was unmasked and on the news. So he needs to know that. So yeah, the multiverse is a strange and unusual thing, and in comic books, it was just there to rewrite and get rid of stuff and change
restart
stuff whenever you wanted.
I wonder too if that whole hive thing leads back to Null, maybe as well. If we get some kind of indication or tease of Null also, because we already heard about the Necro Sword, and we heard other things as well being named. What Necro Sword was named in What If, which it wasn't called that in Ragnarok. But in What If, they actually named it that, and that was tied to Hela, and that's all a Null plus the symbiotes and all that kind of stuff too. So there's some stuff here.
I think the biggest thing that people, if anyone's, again, I'm not telling people what to buy or how to speculate, but if you want to be in with one of these MCU themed characters for the long haul, Spider-Man is the safest bet as any, because even if it all falls apart and people get fatigued with the MCU and it all stops and nobody watches them, Sony will be making a Spider-Man themed movie every 5 years just to keep those rights. They are never giving that up. They are never losing that IP. So kids will still be wearing Spider-Man pajamas in 100 years' time. The only difference is, like I said before, is the relatability. Will they care about the comic book Peter Parker compared to maybe the latest video game version that tells a different story? As collectors, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But it's definitely going to be around. That character's not going anywhere. Like you said, the main three, the ones that Grandma can name: Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. The other characters, people don't, nobody cared about the Eternals, and most people still don't. They didn't care when they made it.
Yeah, you're right. They'll all flit in and out, but those other ones, they'll be there forever. So let's wrap this up now, guys, because I think we've gone on quite a lot, and as Luke quite rightly said, we could speculate. We've just literally just gone completely out of control there, and just sort of spoke about the multiverse and what could happen. And now, to be totally honest, Luke, if we don't get the last scene in Spider-Man No Way Home with what's her name, Jessica Alba coming in, and David Hasselhoff from this side, and Hugh Jackman and Halle Berry, I'll be coming back to you, and I'll be disappointed.
I'll take full responsibility.
My last thing here is that the purple from that scene about they're all coming through. What if it's Morbius and all his bats?
They're all coming through, all the bats. Who knows? We'll get about 4 different versions of Ryan Reynolds, Hannibal King, Green Lantern. Green Lantern, why not? Yeah. Who cares?
Bring some DC characters, then who cares?
Chuck the DC lot in as well. That's what they did on the CW for Thingy, wasn't it? They just had everybody coming in for Crisis on Infinite Earth.
Yeah.
Let's not get stuck into that story. Not now. Look at how to see Alex's face. Just went, no.
The only good stuff is Crisis and Stargirl.
Yeah. So we will be back next week with Luke again. Yeah. Hopefully on the this time next Sunday to release next Monday for the review of No Way Home, which could be a very, very interesting episode. And we'll have obviously lots more facts. We might understand a little bit more about where the MCU is going, a little bit more about Multiverse of Madness, and get some more little hints and little droplets for what's going to happen from the Sony side of things as well going forward. So great chatting to you again, Luke. It won't be long. We'll see you again in 7 days. And
what 7 days it's going to be.
What a 7 days it's going to be. I mean, bear in mind, we've got episode 5 of Hawkeye coming up as well on Wednesday.
Yep.
So that'll be an interesting one.
Oh, speaking of that, this is supposed to be the big episode that's going to shut down the internet, supposedly. This one's being, so
I've got my Spider-Man issue 50 waiting. not to sell, just to show you off. Just to show off.
But listen, Luke, I know, like I said, I know you're going to be back on next week, but just for everybody listening, where can they find you if they want to go and have a look at your stuff between now and next week?
Yeah, so Hydra Collectables on YouTube. And yeah, I literally try and post every week when I can. And like we said earlier, there's been a bit of a change up on things, but there is a whole playlist there solely for comic book content. The majority of it actually being Spider-Man, because it's where my heart truly lies when it comes to Marvel. So yeah, go and check it out. And if you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button. I've just broken the 600 mark. So it would be great to get a few more people jumping on board. So
brilliant.
Hydra Collectables on YouTube, but also on Instagram if you want little sneak peeks of various things that I pick up over the week.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Jara and Alex, it's been a pleasure. We will see you next week. Take care.
Take care.
Why don't you tell them about the time we faced them
All right. Well, as I remember,
at Avenger headquarters?